You are listening to Insurance Untangled podcast, where we explore the various challenges faced by dental practices due to their reliance on insurance. In this podcast, we dive deep into the issues surrounding dental insurance dependence and offer practical solutions and strategies for reducing your reliance on insurance. Join us as we interview industry experts, share success stories, and provide valuable insights to help you take control of your practice's financial future.
Welcome to another exciting episode of the Insurance Untangled podcast. My name is Ben Tuyene, and I'm one of your co-hosts for this podcast, which is dedicated towards helping practices that are really tangled up with insurance in ways that can be very stressful. We talk about a lot of different topics with insurance, outside of insurance, more so to help you take more control to create a bigger, better, brighter future for you and your patients, and of course your team members. Today, I have my dear friend Naren with us. I'm going to interview Naren on this important topic about new patients. Naren, how are you, my friend?
Yeah, I'm doing great.
Excellent. Well, I'm excited to chat with you because as it pertains to new patients, it seems like that's for a lot of practices across the country, new patients are a problem. Well, excuse me, it's not a problem in the sense that your new patients are a problem. Getting them is a struggle for a lot of practices. So today, we're going to talk about what you need to know to get new patients to book appointments with you. So, Naren, the first question I have is, I've heard that the average dental practice would book, 1 out of 3 new patients. And that number sort of boggles my mind. That's 33%, right? So this means that 66 out of every 100 potential new patients are not booked. 66 out of 100. That's mind-boggling to me in terms of lost opportunity. So as an expert in this field, Naren, why is that the case that only a third of potential new patients are scheduled?
Yeah, I think, I've been helping practices, get new patients because I run a marketing company. I've been doing that for 17 years now. And most people, especially I'm talking about solo practice owners with 1 to 2 locations, maybe 3 locations, are dentists first and foremost. So they love dentistry, they love patient care, they love, learning and growing in the clinical side. Not too many of them enjoy the business side of dentistry, so they don't really focus on it as much. And typically those who are exceptional at business side of dentistry, they know what's important and then they focus on what's important set of activities. So when it comes to booking appointments, there are a few things that most practices ignore, which is they don't even know what their conversion rate is. It's kind of like you not knowing or your kids not knowing what grade they got for a certain subject at the end of the year. Like, I don't know if I got an A or an F. How does that kid improve next year when he has no idea whether he got 95 or 39, right? Like you can't help somebody improve till they know where they stand. So, but unfortunately, 90% of dental practices have no idea what's their call conversion rate. In other words, what percentage of patients even book an appointment. So they assume everything is great, but most of the time it's not great, and they don't know how good or bad it is. So, so that's, I think, the number one culprit, like not knowing your call conversion rate. That's the number one reason why, 2 out of 3 new patients actually don't book an appointment. Because they don't know that metric, they cannot improve it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think just for those that are on the that are listening that might not understand what call conversion rate is, or do understand it, maybe want to get a different take or definition behind it. Can you define what that means? What does call conversion rate mean, and why is it important? So you mentioned the metrics behind that. Define call conversion rate, and then why is it important for doctors to really understand that number and know it every single month?
Yeah, it's call conversion rate is the percentage of new patient callers who end up booking an appointment. I've seen some practices defining it as who end up showing up to the new appointment, but the trick with showing up for the new appointment is you have to now wait till that appointment is finished to really figure out that call conversion. So most practices, for simplicity's sake, they define it as the number of new patient appointments who end up booking a new patient appointment. So the only way for you to find this out is you need to listen to all the calls. Let's say you're getting 100 calls from new patients, and you need to, track of those 100 callers, how many booked an appointment, how many didn't. Once you know out of 100 how many booked, now you know your call conversion rate. It can be really challenging because it's not like anecdotal evidence. It has to be, real, right? So you need to have enough of a sample set. So let's say you have to go through like 100, 200 calls to really figure out the correct call conversion rate. Now, going back to why it's important, it's kind of the same example I was sharing earlier. Like, if you don't know what your grade is, or if you don't know what your mark is, how do you improve it? Like, how do you know where you stand? If you don't know where you stand, you can't improve it. In the absence of grading, in the absence of call conversion rate, we all assume we are doing well, because typically practices that do not know what their call conversion rate goes and ask the people who are answering the phone, hey, how are we doing? And they, of course, are going to say, we are doing a great job. Right? Nobody says, I'm not doing a good job, I suck, right? So, and not because they're facetious or they're nasty, or they're trying to be untruthful. It's just human nature, right? We all assume we are doing a good job, right? I mean, we all have dignity and self-esteem, so we definitely believe we are doing a good job. And a lot of times the way we justify all those ones we don't book is by saying, they're all bad patients, that's why I didn't book. They asked about price, they're a bad patient, that's why I didn't book. They asked about insurance, and I know it's going to be a trouble patient, that's why I didn't book. So they justify all these people who are not booking as quote unquote bad patients in their subconscious mind, and therefore in their mind they're getting 100% of the good patients. But the problem is, a lot of the people who they are justifying as bad patients are not really bad patients. They're just like you. They don't know what they don't know. They don't know what questions to ask. They ask the questions they know to ask. And we are just unfortunately, assuming they're not going to be good patients. And therefore we are losing through new patient opportunities with new patient callers.
That just boggles my mind. And you mentioned something in terms of, sort of having, well, you didn't say this in particular, but this is what came to mind, is sort of a false sense of security in terms of your new patient conversion numbers, right? Or new patient flow in general. And it's funny, the picture that came in my mind, Aaron, is when I was a kid in Samoa, we have these boats. They're kind of like pontoon boats with a hollow center and just a platform for you to walk on the boat, and then the engine in the back. But the two front parts there, my brothers and I, we used to hug those, because that's the top of the boat. So anytime you go on the waves and you go over a wave and you land, you just get splashed in the face. But the danger we didn't recognize as kids is that if we fell in the middle of the boat and got sucked in, we would have been completely shredded by the engines. Having a lot of fun, but having sort of a false sense of security as a kid at the time in terms of that. And I know that's probably a bad example when it comes to this, but the conversion rate, and the reason why I bring that up is because it boggles my mind that it's a 33% conversion rate. 66 out of 100 don't schedule.
Right.
So if I'm a dentist and I'm hearing this, and by the way, I didn't mention my story as an insult to anybody. I know that there's a lot going on in a dental practice and a lot of reasons why that number is where it's at. But if I know that my call conversion rate is relatively low, what can I do as a dentist to turn that around?
Yeah, I think I'm going to share some best practices. The very first thing is you need to know what your call conversion rate is, not just one time, but on a monthly basis. So figure out a way to get that accurate data every month. It has to be accurate. It can't be like asking your team. It's like asking your son, how did you do in math this semester? And he's like, I'm doing great. Of course, he's going to say that, right? But show me the evidence, show me the exam paper, show me how many marks you got, show me the report card, right? You need evidence, and the evidence has to be objective. It's not biased. It's not, what we wish it was. It's really, really objective. So make sure, number one, you find out what the call conversion rate is every single month. Number two, you create a forum where you and the team responsible for answering the phone call looks at not only the call conversion rate, but actually listens to sample calls. Some of them should be good calls, and some of them perhaps calls you need to work on. And when you listen to these calls with the understanding that we want to improve call conversion rate, you will start looking for opportunities. You will start noticing patterns. You will start seeing mistakes. So now it becomes a great way to continue to improve. Now, I've seen practices do this kind of a review once a month, and the ones who are, really struggling, sometimes they do it every week. So the higher the frequency, the better. Of course, as you get better and better, the frequency can come down. So you can go from every week to once every 2 weeks to maybe once a month. But but the beautiful thing is the shorter the frequency, the faster the improvement, right? It's like
Mm.
instead of waiting a month to improve, now you're improving every 2 weeks. So instead of waiting every 2 weeks, you're improving every week. So it's have the call conversion rate, calculated and provided to you every month, then create an environment where you can look at sample calls and the call conversion rate to improve things. And then finally, there are best practices, right? Anything else, there are, smart ways to do something and, dumb ways to mess it up. So learn those smart ways, get some experts, start creating some, I don't want to call it templates or talking points, but almost like patterns. Like typically this is the pattern of a call, and here are the start and the beginning and the middle and the end. These are some of the components of the call. Typically, this is how you deal with these types of situations, and this is how you deal with those types of situations that seem to stump all of us or many of us in our practice. So that training, that coaching, that framework, that's the last component of anyone who's trying to improve their call conversion rate.
Gotcha. I appreciate you mentioning that. Another thing that you mentioned before was sort of the common mistakes, making assumptions about whether a patient is a good or bad patient. But when it comes to talking to potential new patients for the first time over the phone, what are some of the common mistakes that you see that team members are making that results in patients not scheduling?
Yeah, I mean, the simple mistakes, I'll just go through the ones. We are a marketing company. We work with 500 doctors, and this is a service we include as part of our marketing service, because imagine you have great marketing, but your call conversion is not what it needs to be. Now you're going to lose half of your new patients, or 2/3 of your new patients, which means as far as your bottom line is concerned, your new patient numbers haven't improved. So it's a great way to really add value to our clients. So we include it as part of our service. So I have a lot of experience kind of noticing the common patterns. There are certain components of every successful call. Like, for example, tell the patient your name. Say, hello, I'm so-and-so, and who am I speaking with? And the patient mentions their name as Ben. Now use the word Ben or name Ben throughout the conversation. I'm so glad you called, Ben. You called the right office. So really, like, finding the name and using the patient's name throughout the conversation. Taking control of the call, like, as opposed to I've seen calls where it's like the person answering the call doesn't see themselves as a chief impressions officer, chief's welcome officer, but rather as an answering person. Okay, I just wait for a question and they answer the questions. The third thing is asking for appointment. Sounds so basic and simple, but if you don't ask, you don't get, right? Like, if you don't control the call, and if you don't get that appointment book or ask for the appointment to book, it's not going to happen. So those are some of the basic mistakes I see practices making. Then also I notice, there are certain, the way I like to explain this to clients, when I'm like, sometimes a client might have this as a big issue and I might jump in and help them. So when I try to have this conversation, I kind of start playing these calls, and there are patients who literally say, please, can I come see you? Do you take new patients? Those patients are like begging you to take them, right? Or there are patients who have an emergency. Again, they are begging you to take them. Those are the easy calls. Unfortunately, the average practice is good at getting that emergency patient and good at getting that patient who's begging you to take them. They're like, do you take new patients? I mean, they're literally asking you, like, will you please take me? Right. But that's not where the challenge is. The challenge is, what about those who are not in those two situations? How do you get them to come see you? Like, for example, sometimes you may have to reassure the patient, they have a big need and they're not really sure if you are the right office. So reassure them you have a lot of experience. Talk about the credentials of the doctor, like, depending on the situation, right? Doesn't mean you have to reassure on every call. Like, if somebody's calling with pain, sitting here and ranting about how great your doctor is perhaps not the right thing to do. So many of the things I'm sharing, like, it depends on the situation, what you use and what you don't use. The other thing, like, there are some common mistakes people make. Like, I describe it like walking into alleyways at night, right? Imagine you are in New York, you are new, you are a tourist, and you go into this road. There's no light, nobody around, like in this corner somewhere, like you're going into this lane, and you don't know what's around the corner. Maybe somebody's waiting with a knife to steal your stuff, or pickpocket you or mug you or whatever it is, right? You don't want to walk down those dark alleys, right? Just it's dumb and stupid. Like, why would you do that? But sometimes accidentally the patient might ask a question, and the response is almost like we are taking them down that alleyway. Like, it's almost like we are leading them to a dead end where, like, literally in 10 seconds right after you give the answer, you know the call is going to end. Like there's no way but for the call to end. So those are some common lessons I've noticed, having done this for 17 years, like where practices struggle because they just don't master these things I just shared. Building that rapport, using the patient's name, controlling the call, asking for an appointment, avoiding the alleyway. So these are some of the common things, reassuring the patient.
Yeah, no, I like that. It's kind of like what they say about first impressions, right? Is that a lot of times if we make a good effort to be kind to people, especially if it's a new patient that's calling in, using their name, all the basic things in terms of winning somebody over, right? I'm surprised to hear that there are a lot of practices where patients are like, I'm trying to give you my money, but you're not letting me give it to you. And then those patients subsequently end up getting scheduled somewhere else because they have difficulty. So when it comes to that type of struggle, like the front office team that really struggles with this whole area of scheduling new patients and very likely just how they're communicating with patients, what do you suggest in terms of coaching and assistance for people that need help in this area?
Yeah. I mean, the person I recommend the most is Gary Takas. He has a coaching practice called the Thriving Dentist Academy. So definitely one of the services we offer to mutual clients, meaning clients of Equa Marketing. And then, of course, Gary's coaching program is this call coaching service. And, some doctors have said that feature alone is worth the entire coaching fees. Because, if you were to think about the math, right? Like this is an actual case study. There was a practice getting 100 new patient calls a month, but they were only booking 33 or 34. Now they are booking 70, right? So literally, they didn't increase their marketing spend, but they're getting double the benefit from their marketing, literally like 100%, benefit. Now that extra 35 patients, and typically, let's say a patient is worth at least $2,000, that's 70 grand, right? I mean, so that is really, really high value way to grow your practice. And the beautiful thing is you're not doing extra work, you're just doing it better. It's like you're not making extra, meals, you're just making the meals world class, Michelin, 3-star class. Now it's like, wow, it's just an experience that happens once in a lifetime. So it's a really smart way for you to get much better ROI on your dollars. So, but I'll give you two specific examples. The two places where I see practices really struggle when it comes to booking appointments is when the patient asks about money. The immediate reaction that a lot of people answering the phone have is, oh, it's a bad patient. They're a price shopper. Right. We have, and they start talking amongst themselves as, oh, price shoppers are bad and they're not really interested in us. They don't value us. They don't appreciate us. But we have to understand at some level, all of us are price shoppers. Why? Because that's the only question 100% of us know to ask. You go to a car mechanic and the guy goes something and you don't understand what he's saying. And the only question you understand is, how much is this going to cost me? And he goes $3,000. So it doesn't mean he's a price shopper. No, he still wants to know the price. And that's the only question. Like we do the things we are comfortable with. We ask the questions we know to ask. So keep that in mind. So do not assume they're a price shopper. And usually the minute they hear a price shopper, you hear the tone of the voice go down, the excitement go down. It's almost like they don't want to talk to this person anymore. I'm talking about the person answering the phone. So the patient also sees it. And of course, they're not your customer yet. They don't need to, not walk in if they don't feel like a red carpet is being rolled out for them, right? Like, I mean, they have a choice not to walk in. Remember, they are like on a phone, they're very safe and stuff. So you have to like control your emotions. You have to know how to not judge the patient. You have to know how to answer these questions, and one of the ways I recommend in those kind of situations is, find out why they are calling. First, really understand that you can make a difference and connect on that level, right? Like, okay, they have a wedding coming up and, they want that beautiful smile or they really don't want to have, gingivitis and it comes a bleeding and they really want a good doctor who can take care of them and who can, bring them back to superior oral health. So get to that root cause. What made them to call you? Connect on that, because once they connect at that, all the other stuff just almost vanishes. Another question that comes up is like, do you take my insurance? And patients never ask, oh, do you take this PPO plan? But the person answering the phone hears, a very, very detailed question the patient never asked, and they try to answer the question the patient even didn't ask. In so doing, they end up turning away the patient. like, because they're telling all the fine print and all the nuances and stuff, and they haven't even said hello. They don't even know you yet. They don't even like and trust you yet. So
Mhm.
how can they go to that, no like and trust and, even wanting to book an appointment when you just chase them away at the door by just going down this tangent that is a dead end, right? That alley that I talked about. So, and the more you start listening to the calls, remember one of my tips, like listen to these calls on a regular basis as a
Mhm.
team, some good, some bad. You start noticing what you're doing, how you are doing it, why you did it, even the subconscious things you didn't realize at the time. Now you start seeing, oh, I'm doing this subconsciously because I got yelled at by this patient X 7 months ago, and that is what's in my memory. And I'm telling all these things to almost turn them away because I don't want to get yelled at by this other patient. A lot of
Yeah.
people who work in dentistry don't like confrontation, so they are really, really averse of any kind of possible negative situation in the
Mhm.
future. So
Yeah.
without realizing it, they turn these people off. And unfortunately, if you do this, you're going to lose a lot of new patients.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think at the end of the day, my experience is most people are generally kind, right? And
Mhm.
I don't believe that 66% of people out there are bad. You know,
Great.
66% of people that you encounter are mostly going to be good. You know, it's usually the opposite, where it's the minority share of our patients that give us a hard time. And it's a minority share of human beings that give us bad experiences, right?
Yeah.
So I
What's
like what you mentioned. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like, you can't say a particular group of people are bad just because one person is bad. You know what I mean?
Right. Right. Right.
It's totally, and that's unfortunately what we do as human beings. We kind of, oh, anybody who asks, a question about insurance or a question about price, we assume are bad, even though that's not the case. Maybe 1 out of 10 is bad, but the other 9 are awesome people. They
Yeah.
just don't know what are the question to ask.
Absolutely. What do you think? So you mentioned that example about going from 33 to 34 all the way to 70%. What is a healthy call conversion rate in a dental practice setting?
That's a great question. I really think at the very least it should be 70%. To me, that's
Mm.
like a very, very easy A that you should aspire to. Of course, I have practices that maintain 85%, 90%. It's not easy to maintain 85 to 90%, but it's
Mhm.
possible. But think of it like over 12 months, think of it over 10 years. I mean, this could be hundreds, if not thousands of extra new, really good patients you could have had the opportunity of serving and
Mhm.
taking care of, right? So this can be a like game changing, life changing thing for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I would say aim for 70%. And once you're at 70%, keep going up and up and up, and even try to get
Mhm.
to 85 to 90%.
That's awesome. Well, as you know, Naren, I recommend your firm every single time we have a conversation. I think when it comes to new patients, for some reason I didn't really knew this number. I thought the call conversions were a lot higher than they actually were. But I recognize that this is a very, very important aspect of a dental practice is the marketing, the new patient flow, capturing those opportunities. But I imagine that if you understand the dynamics of patient communication to increase that call conversion from 33 to 70%, that naturally that level of communication would increase, well, at least improve other aspects of just how we communicate with people in general, right? To influence patient retention. So for those of you that are listening, I recommend Equa for all things marketing, simply because I've witnessed firsthand how helpful they can be with regards to marketing new patient calls and things of that nature. So for those of you that are out there that might find interest with what Naren mentioned, I recommend doing a marketing strategy meeting with his team. You can go to our website to get that set up. It's insuranceuntangled.com/MSM to request that marketing strategy meeting. Naren, any final thoughts as we close up today's episode?
Yeah, have that meeting. If your marketing is excellent, we'll tell you so. If not, you'll know what you need to work on. And also, we'll give you a 12-month plan. So within 12 months, you can be in the top 5% from a marketing perspective. So take advantage of this no cost offer, insuranceuntangled.com/MSM. Hope you had fun, Ben, with this conversation about booking appointments and conversion rate and the common mistakes people make. So hopefully, if you have any questions on that, you can also go to insuranceuntangled.com and reach out to myself or any one of our other people here, and we would love to answer all your questions.
That's awesome, Naren. Super important episode today. I learned a lot of really cool, new, neat things. I'm disgusted that the conversion rate is only 33%, which is good opportunity for those of you in dentistry that have dental practices in terms of focusing on that, hopefully this week, and finding ways to improve that. So thank you, Naren. Always a pleasure chatting with you and picking your brain. So just a quick announcement for our listeners. We now are on, we're live on YouTube podcasts, and you can listen to this episode and stream all other podcasts on YouTube, or as well as, on YouTube, if you look for at Insurance Untangled and hit the notification bell, you can stay updated on all the latest episodes and content. So we want to thank you for joining our episode today. Another amazing episode of the Insurance Untangled podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to give us a like and share this on social media with your friends. We appreciate your reviews. If you're willing to give us a review, that'll allow other doctors to find who we are, what we do, and what we teach. So again, visit insuranceuNtangled.com to find out more, as well as other exclusive freebies and upcoming webinars. Until we meet again, hope all of you have a wonderful week.